Hey, welcome to Mike the Baptist. Middle of the month of March. Can you believe that? It seems like only a couple months ago it was January. Anyway, welcome to the program. Welcome to Neil Andrews.
Hey.
Friend of mine, a regular here.
Yes.
You're regular. Is that good for you to know? We're also analytical here at MTB. Good to have you here.
Thank you. I was going to compliment you on the tire swing, by the way.
The painting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Very
nice. I've been doing some artistic work at my church.
Very nice.
Children's wing, and most recently, 2 girls on a tire swing.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm glad you noticed.
Oh, yeah.
It's artists do that, and they don't really necessarily do it to be noticed, but when you do notice and you say something, it's always nice.
Yes.
So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. HD Jones.
Top of the morning to you, Michael.
Do you have a compliment for me, HD? I'm kind of getting used to that.
Did you paint?
Yeah. Have you been there?
Yeah. Have you been to church lately? Hey, no, you got the swing set, not swing set, but the
yes.
The playground.
I was also tasked with putting together this massive, heavy playground equipment, which is deceiving. It does not look. Listen, a 6x6 composite playground post is like picking up 10 4x4 treated lumber posts. Whoa. They are heavy. Mm-hmm. Wow. My body's not as young as my mind is, so there was a challenge there. Fortunately, around churches, there's a lot of volunteer labor who sometimes only show up once because you trick them into doing something, and then they go walk away thinking what I was thinking. Those things are heavy. Anyway, yeah, it's done. Yep. Thank you. Good to have you all back here on the program. www.mikethebaptist.com. Go on there and look around. It's a website. Just go look around. Send us an email, comments at mikethebaptist.com. On the last episode, I asked for emails with questions for the people here. All of us here. Just I would like for you to send us an email and just ask whatever you want to ask, because I will publicly ask these guys your question and see what kind of response we get. And they're always usually lively, so I look forward to your email. Send them. Stop monkeying around and not send them. Send us an email. There. So today, as usual, we're going to have a visit on the front porch to kick things off. So I get comments about the front porch visit. The good news is the 1.5ers that we used to give a hard time are completely silent. With our new shorter format, they've gone completely silent. The danger in that is that a few people that says, man, I like the longer front porch visit, they've been getting them. So if it's a long front porch visit, so be it. If it's in the new short format, you're welcome to the old 1.5ers.
And if it's not long enough to read, you can listen to 2 of them.
That's exactly right. You can go back and you can rewind these things and just listen to them over and over and over again.
Or you can listen to them at 1.5.
You can. Listen, I'll tell you again, if you really want a treat, listen to them at 0.5. Listen to them at half speed. It's hilarious. I think in this episode, when I do the editing for this, I'll drop a little sample of that in. Maybe about right here.
Yeah.
Because. Just because of the personality change it imposes on you guys. Not that it affects mine at all, but on you guys, it really amps up your personality.
That would be awesome.
And what you just said will be perfect when I do that. I'm just saying.
It'll be awesome.
It'll be really awesome. Today on the front porch visit, I forgot what it was. Let me think.
Something about hometown, right?
Yes, I'd like for us to talk about our hometowns. And a kind listener offered me this suggestion, as well as the suggestion for the next episode. We want to thank the kind listener who does not want to be pointed out, so I'm not going to point them out. I do want to point them out, but I don't want to point them out. It's a long story. Anyway, so what I'd like for us to do is talk about our hometowns, and you can make this be about anything you want. Well, what you like because it's unique, what you're fond of, what you hated, just your hometown. Neil, let's start with you.
So I moved here a long time ago from Chicago, which was not my hometown. But my hometown was still in that vicinity. I was born in Angola, Indiana. And the reason I mentioned that is because when I moved here and we were looking for a place to settle, we went through Franklin. And Franklin it did look identical to Angola, Indiana, except it had the monument in the center.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And it had, the streets went north, south, east, and west. And they went out about, 2 or 3 blocks, and then it started being residential past that. Virtually the same, except the monument that was different. That had a different person standing on it than the one here in Franklin did.
I could see where that would make sense.
Had different clothes on.
Right.
So that's where I grew up.
As a side note, a lot of towns have town squares, but there are the occasional town that has a monument out in the center. I think Lebanon, Tennessee has something out in the center of their little, it's not a courthouse, it's like a monument or something. I wonder why some places chose a monument.
I don't know. It's a good
Me
question.
either. I just thought I'd throw that in the mix there. Carry on.
What would you like me to tell you about?
Angola.
Angola, yeah. I remember a long time ago on the podcast here, you brought up Angola, and we tried to make fun of the name and what have you.
Right.
So what did you do? Did you go into town as a kid there and stuff?
Oh, yes.
Or?
Yeah.
That's what I'd kind of like to hear about.
Yeah. It's so we after I'd been there for a little while, my parents moved to Fort Wayne, which was 40 miles south of that. But we were in Angola all the time because my grandparents lived there. I had aunts and uncles that lived around there. The downtown, so around that circle, there were shops around there, and there were 2 movie theaters that probably sat, 100 people maybe in each one. And I had an aunt and uncle that owned one of the theaters there.
Oh, that's neat.
So I could ride my bike or I could walk downtown, and it was however many cents to get in. It was like 75 cents or something like that. To get that dates me, doesn't it?
A little bit.
It makes me think less of your aunt and uncle. They made you pay.
No, they didn't.
Okay,
they didn't. But it was always affordable.
Okay.
If I did.
How far away from downtown did you live? Just a block or 2 or something?
Yeah, it wasn't very far.
Oh.
It was maybe a mile, something like that. So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You remember any movies you saw?
Yes, I remember Towering Inferno.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
That's back there.
There were a lot of that's the main thing I remembered, because they had to put in a subwoofer. That was one of the first films that had enhanced low end in it.
Mm-hmm.
So
I thought he was going to say sprinkler system.
No, that came later.
I don't think they had a sprinkler system. I think
if you're going to show Towering Inferno, you should.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I just now picked up on that.
And I got that. Yeah.
Interesting. Do you remember the name of the theater?
I don't. I'm sorry.
Do you know what it is now?
Haven't been there for a long time.
Well, you should go.
I should.
Yeah, you should go check that out.
Mm-hmm. I'd be afraid that it had changed from what my memory.
I'm certain that it probably has.
Yeah.
Interesting. Angola.
Yeah, Angola is kind of the gateway to. It's about 20 miles south of Michigan, the border, and there are hundreds of lakes in Michigan. So that's what people would do, is they'd go from all parts south through Angola to get to the lakes.
Kind of like Opp, Alabama.
Yeah.
People here going to the beach from the central Tennessee area have to go through places like Opp and Funiac Springs, and
Didn't I send you a photo of a billboard from Op?
yeah, you were down there for something.
We went through.
You went through, yes.
I don't remember what for, but yeah.
Yeah, I found it ironic that you would send me something from Op because I did some golf course things down in Op a long time ago, and I always thought that was an interesting name, Op.
Yeah.
I did some radio commercials for an ad agency for some regional restaurant, a tuxedo shop in Alabama, and Op was one of the towns that I think may have had one of these Stewart's tuxedo shops or something. Anyway, I just always liked that name, Op.
Fascinating, yeah.
I'd like to meet the guy that named it Op.
OPP.
Yeah.
It's
Op,
probably
Alabama.
Fred Op.
You know, I think a local resident here of our little hometown of White House was coming back or going with his family on a trip to Florida, and a tree, and I think it was in Op or just outside of Op, fell on their automobile, and he died.
Wow.
Yep, many years ago. I think
that's not funny at all.
No,
This is supposed to be a lighthearted.
yeah, I shouldn't have brought that up, but anyway, just
Wow.
there's so many things surrounding the word Op. Interesting. But you're not from Op. You were
I'm
from
not from Op.
Angola.
I'm so
Yes.
confused.
Why did Op come up? Oh, it's because it's like one of those little towns. I brought it up. I'm
You
sorry.
did. Why did Op come up?
No, okay. All right, so
Isn't that what that movie's about?
Tower
The
Inferno.
German guy that lived in Oppenheimer.
You know, I found a free version of Oppenheimer, and I decided to watch it recently.
You did.
And I got like 30 minutes into it, and you have to just really be concentrating to watch that movie,
Yes.
Oppenheimer. I mean, it's not one that you just watch and go to the fridge, and get a snack. You got to really
You
just
gotta
sit
pay
down
attention.
and really pay attention. Otherwise, you do what I did, and 30 minutes in, I got to
It's
do this.
kind of like that Three Stooges remake that came out 10 years ago, isn't it?
Kind of. Yeah, kind of,
Where
but
you
a
really
little
have to pay
more
attention.
intense. Yeah, you have to pay a lot of attention.
They're in the same genre, I can tell.
Angola, okay. Thank you.
Isn't that
Yeah,
a
you're
goat?
Huh?
Isn't that a goat?
Angola?
Like wool?
No, that's a sweater, or isn't it?
There is an
Angora.
Angora.
You know, what's the sweater? It's got the little tiny, real fine hairs all over it. Is that Angola?
Alpaca.
No.
Yeah.
There's some sweater that has
Yeah.
these little fine.
Yeah.
So my wife and I were at a Dillard's a long time ago, and I did not know about these sweaters. I knew she had the sweater, but I didn't know about the little fine hairs. But she was bent over a perfume case,
It's an Angora.
looking at Angora, and she was looking at this perfume stuff, and I'm standing back here all bored looking for something to do, and I get to looking at her sweater, and it's got these little hairs. Well, I was a smoker at the time,
Oh, no.
so I casually took my
You did not.
lighter out, and I was going to burn one of those little hairs off, and I lit it, and the sound was kind of like this, whoop, because it got most of the hairs in that,
Including
little area.
hers.
Yeah, just whoop. So in my mind, I remember her standing up looking around going,
What just happened?
but anyway,
Is your wife?
you know, who would have thought your hometown was going to be this wild?
Yeah.
Okay. Speaking of wild, HD, where are you from?
I grew up in the Briar, man. Greenbrier. Yeah.
You say that like the hood.
It's kind of like the hood, yeah. It was back in the day. There really wasn't a whole lot going on in Greenbrier. There was we didn't have a McDonald's, we didn't have Taco Bell, all that good stuff. We had to go down to Springfield for that kind of fun. So kind of rural, although we had a few subdivisions and stuff. But I remember going to school. I mean, there'd be people with shotguns in the back of their truck, and I remember one of our coaches would give you money to go get him a pack of cigarettes at the local little discount store, during school. I mean, can you imagine that today? I mean, kids.
Oh, no.
We have to call out the National Guard because a child went and bought cigarettes for their coach.
Or the shotgun in the back window.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
exactly.
especially.
Yeah, but it was just kind of just small town, and everybody knew everybody, and everybody knew their business. And that was one of the things I remember when I graduated high school. I was like, I got to get out of this one horse town and get out. And, so I went to the big town of Knoxville, but found myself back at home. I live on my granddad's place now, so I guess some of the things that you try to run away from as you get older, they start looking a whole lot more appealing. And we laugh now, a couple of years ago when the bomb went off in Nashville around Christmas, we were getting phone calls and, are y'all okay? Are y'all okay? Yeah, we're fine. Why? Well, there's a bomb went off in Nashville. We didn't know that in Greenbrier because we were just sitting up here on the hill, enjoying Christmas breakfast. So, yeah.
And that's one of those things you said about everybody knows everybody. That's the same thing that I experience. And the deal is everybody knows everybody. So if you do something bad,
Oh, yeah.
your parents know about it like that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And other people's parents.
Yes.
Oh, everybody knows. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Greenbrier, Tennessee, did not have like a town square. It's kind of
It's
one of
just
those towns
it's
that's on
a
the road.
straight shot. Yep.
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 With some little bit kind of neighborhoods off behind the main.
Yeah, but we didn't have a square.
Stoplight?
I think we had one. They may have upgraded to two by now. I don't know. We do have McDonald's now. That's really exciting.
There's a Sonic over there too.
There's a Sonic and a
Is that
Golly.
considered Greenbrier?
Yeah,
Okay.
Golly G's got a ice cream shop. That's
Didn't
pretty
know
cool.
about Golly G's.
Golly G's. Yeah, weird story. So one of our friends at church, Cecilia, her first husband, that was his auto mechanic shop.
Really?
So our Hinkle friends, that's where their daddy's shop was.
Oh,
Yeah.
neat. Interesting.
It's now an ice cream place. Pretty cool.
Things change.
Things change. Yep.
So how far, I know where your family farm is. That was within a bike ride to downtown, wasn't it?
No, we were about 5 miles.
Oh, that was not a bike
Yeah.
ride because that would have been up and down
Yeah.
hills and
Across the railroad tracks,
not a bike ride.
Yeah.
Did you ever walk the tracks to town?
No. There's a big tunnel. There's a big tunnel at the top. Greenbrier, right where the ball fields are and stuff right there. There's a huge tunnel that goes all the way down through Ridgetop and comes out in Goodlettsville. A huge tunnel.
Did not know this.
Yes.
Hmm.
And some
Don't
people,
go, Jackson.
Some people,
Don't go, Jackson.
some people have
Don't
walked
go.
it. Yeah, but it's one of those things that if you're in the middle of the tunnel and the train comes,
Yeah.
you gotta get down.
Better suck
and
yourself
you-
up to the wall.
You gotta get
Just
down.
stay
Yeah,
there.
yeah. That would scare me to death.
Yeah, I did not know that.
Yeah, it was a big tunnel.
It'd have to be a long tunnel
Yeah.
to go through that area. Huh. So, what'd you do there when you were a kid?
We just hung out on the farm, swung off grapevines,
Yep.
chased cows, threw mud pies at each other. Just normal kid stuff.
So, if you went into town, though, Greenbrier's where you.
There really wasn't much there. I mean, there really was not. I think there was a little CB store where you get Douglas, and there was a 5 and 10. There was a little 5 and 10 place where you could pick up a few things, but mostly we'd have to go into Springfield. Even White House was nothing. I mean, absolutely, we never came to White House for anything. 'Cause
Oh,
there was-
there, I live in White House. There was nothing here.
There
when
was
I moved
nothing here.
One yellow light.
We'd go to Springfield and we'd eat at Wingo's. Wingo's was a good little family restaurant you could eat in. Yeah, that was about our excitement once a week.
Interesting. Well, I grew up in Arkansas, and I'm comparing.
Right.
I'm comparing my story to your story of Greenbrier because my hometown, Marshall, Arkansas, was a small town too, but it had a town square. And I think growing up there was maybe like 1,800 people population, so it was kind of a fairly busy little town. Had a strawberry industry that brought people to town, a big cattle industry there, and sale barn activities and that sort of stuff. But we had the town square. And I always think about that town square and how you could go park your car somewhere on town square, leave your windows down and your key in there, and just spend however much time you needed to do whatever, and never worried about any of that. And I can recall as a kid being taken there, let out, and then for hours just roam around the square, and had a drugstore on one corner. Where you could get cinnamon toothpicks. Do y'all ever remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Cinnamon
Drugstores?
toothpicks, that's good stuff.
Yep.
Not like these sissy cinnamon toothpicks
No,
that
no.
you can buy
They
today.
were hot.
There was a pharmacist back there actually dipping them in a jar of something and then putting them in a little wax sleeve, and you could buy them. They were serious toothpicks. We had that. We had a Ben Franklin variety store.
Yep.
Did they have those in Tennessee, Ben Franklin? We had a clothing store there, shoe store, a pool hall, bank or two up and down there, and just your basic small town. And on any given day in my hometown, as you're walking around the square, running into everybody and anybody, there's just sounds that emanated from the center of the court area, from the basement. There was a basement with an outside entrance that went down in there. It was all the old men playing dominoes. So all day long, click, 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 clack, clack, click, clack, 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 laughing, carrying on. There's a guy that owned the hardware store that the local political minds would all gather out on the porch there, and they would whittle and chew tobacco and talk politics. And so it was a basic little magazine hometown. And interesting.
Has it grown quite a bit?
Actually, not really. It's in a really interesting area between two other kind of bustling areas. And my hometown area was the hometown on that highway of the Buffalo National River. So there was an opportunity for that to have exploded as a tourist destination, and it did. I mean, there's 1 million something people, I think, float the river every year, so there's constantly people coming in there. But the people there didn't really seem to want the area to explode because it's such a unique little nice place to live. I can looking back, as a young man full of entrepreneurial spirit, it would aggravate you. Why can't we make this place grow and be? Looking back, I'm kind of glad it didn't. It made it hard on guys like me. I was a creative guy. Couldn't make a living there doing what I did because you just couldn't pay for that. So I kind of had to go elsewhere to find, beans. But the area itself has kind of kept that atmosphere. It's a lot about visiting people and hunting and fishing and kind of living a little more chill lifestyle. So I appreciate that. On one hand, you hate it because of economic reasons. It's just hard. It's hard sometimes to make a good go of things if you're comparing yourself to the rest of the planet. But the trade-off, I think, is really worth it mentally. That's some of the most solid, down-to-earth, wise people I know are from that area.
I think there used to be a lot more of as you come to be make your living, a lot of that is you tend to do what your parents did.
Yes. Yeah, you do.
Not everybody went to college.
Oh no.
As a matter of fact, not many people went to college.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them do now from my area. But when I was growing up, a good number did, but a lot of people didn't. They were just satisfied being there.
That's one of the things I like about White House too, is you see multiple. It's like at our church, you see multiple generations of families. It's not just two generations.
Right. You
see more than that, and that's good.
I think it's good. I think about an area like mine, or like Greenbrier or Algora. Was it Algora? Algonia?
Oh,
Algora. Which one was it?
That Algora is
Al Gore was the vice president.
Al Gore. That's pretty good, actually. What was the town? I've already forgotten the town. Allegheny.
Angola.
Oh, Angola. I didn't know what you were talking about.
Well,
it's a town in Africa.
Long story short, if all of the local people from these areas disappeared, they wouldn't be what they. Because I can go home to my hometown now and just have a ball. I run into all these people I know. They let me get away with all kinds of things I could never get away with here in this town. But anyway, yeah, fond memories, hometown. And, I only got started. We'll come back and visit this again sometime because I got all these stories swelling around.
So much for the shorter format.
Yeah, I was looking at my timer here, and we've been shooting for like a 10-minute opening segment. We kind of blew that, but
we did 2 of those, didn't we?
We did a couple of those, and I feel like we didn't get it all done. But in the interest of, I don't know if it's an interesting thing. We're going to move on. Come back and talk about some stuff we found in the Bible. We'll be back.
Do you listen to or watch Mike the Baptist? Do you wear clothes? If so, we've got some great news. T-shirts and hoodies are now available at MikeTheBaptist.com. Just visit MikeTheBaptist.com, click on the merchandise link, and you'll find high-quality tees, hoodies, and even onesies for the babies in a variety of colors, all with the Mike the Baptist logo and familiar sayings from the program. Mike the Baptist is a true labor of love. No one has to pay to listen or watch the program, but Mike and the crew have to eat. So a portion of each sale of a t-shirt or hoodie goes to Mike's local Kroger, Walmart, or electric utility. It's kind of simple like that. In order to keep the program free, we have to generate a bit of income to pay the bills. When you make a purchase, you're not only doing the world a favor by wearing clothes, you're helping keep the messages of Mike the Baptist on the air. Thanks for helping out, and thanks so much for being involved in spreading the good news. What a great planet.
Hey, we're back, and we should have just filmed the green room there during that little break because it's kind of interesting too. But we didn't, and we're going to move on. We're going to talk about some stuff that found in the Bible. You know, a lot of these talks that we have in the middle of MTB have to do with this series of things that we as a church group kind of study all together, sort of, on a weekly basis. So that lends itself well to us just having a good little conversation here on MTB in the middle. We try to disguise it a little bit to make it just seem like we're having a casual conversation, which ironically we are. But, you know, just a little inside information. These talks are kind of loosely based on that, on the concept in those weekly endeavors we do. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there's actually a book that is put together.
It's called the Bible?
I think each quarter, the Bible too, but each quarter my church puts together a book. Hold one up there, you guys. Both of y'all have one over there. If you are watching or listening and you're not a member of our church, but you'd like to have one of those books, I'll bet you money we can get you one. You send us an email or something and we'll see what we can do about that. But you might find it interesting, you might not. HD writes a lot of it, so it might not be that interesting. But no, look, I know a lot of people like workbooks, and they like to have something to go by and take notes and all that. I'm not like that, but I know people are, so I do not want to overlook you. If you're out there and you need something to scribble on while you're listening or watching, we will fix you up. Okay.
You know, there's no place to put the offering envelopes in our church now, so I don't have anywhere to.
I'll put a link on the website.
Well, okay.
I've got a square reader that I've had for years, and I never use it much because I don't sell anything to anybody. But I have one. I've often thought about bringing it to my church and clipping it on one of the offering plates, just to see if anybody would swipe their card.
To see, yeah.
Wouldn't that be a fun experiment?
Yeah.
All right, we're going to turn this over to the preachers to talk about stuff we found in the Bible.
Cool. We were this last week. We've been reading, and one of the encounters that's in there that everyone seems to know is Jesus going to the temple and turning over the tables of money changers, and kind of pondering why was that? What was the motivation behind that? And realized that it was that was a sacred place of worship. And so as a worship leader, I know that I strive to stick to what guidance we get from the Word. And I think about the contemporary church having changed. We have, I always comment about how the way the sanctuary is laid out actually has an intentionality behind it. But as I grew up in Angola, as I grew up in the church, we used to have a choir loft because it was a choir, pipe organ, piano. And the choir loft was back in behind. It wasn't up front, so the choir wasn't standing up front. They were behind. So whenever we would worship together, choir stands up and sings. The congregation stands up and sings. We're all facing the same way. We're facing the cross, which is at the front of the sanctuary. And I'm wondering, in our contemporary society, what is it that what is it that we can do to make sure that the purpose of the church stays the way it's supposed to, rather than getting turned into something else?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. And contextually, we can look at worship and see what its main purpose was: to have a connection with God, to do praise and worship toward Him. Believe it or not, they did not have pipe organs back in the Old Testament.
What?
Or the New Testament.
What? No.
That's maybe in the Apocrypha, but it's not in the Old and New Testament.
Do you want to explain that word that you just
Apocrypha?
used?
Oh, you could buzz that.
Or
That's
pipe organ.
That,
Explain pipe organ.
yeah, what's a
too.
pipe organ?
Buzz.
Oh, yes.
Apocrypha.
Yeah.
That's a
Buzzer.
good. That's a good religious word to buzz.
Oh, hang on.
Excuse me, we were experiencing technical difficulties.
There
Thank
we
you.
go.
Woo! Right on time.
Yeah.
But as our culture changes, I would even say in our church, as our culture changes, since I've been at Temple, when I came, all we had was a piano and an organ.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. Then all of a sudden we started adding a guitar and
Drums.
then a bass guitar, and now we've added drums. And I'm sure that there's some of our older folks that would be like, that's not the way we used to do church, and that's not right. I think what Jesus was addressing was not the issue of people providing sacrifices or helping people that had traveled in to have a sacrifice for the Passover, but it's that they were overcharging and they were making a spectacle out of it, and they were really taking advantage of people. And so when I think about worship, I really try to think about substance over form, because the form of worship may be different. What they did in Angola, I guarantee you, was different than what they did in Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
It may be different. We talk about high church, and we talk about the differences that, even today we talk about contemporary or traditional. I'm not sure God cares as much about the form as He does the substance of it.
Right. And I think back about that, it's been maybe 15 years ago, I saw a CCM musician that went somewhere to engage in the people, and it was like Nairobi or somewhere like that, where English was not their first language. And I saw a video of him, and they were teaching the people how to do this worship song that they had been known for. And I thought, that's really weird. That culture of people has their own musical thing. And not only that, in the Western world, we've got 12 pitches in an octave. And this place, wherever it was, they had 16 pitches in an octave, which means when you hear it and your ears are used to Western and you hear that, it's like those notes are flat or they're sharp or they're not in tune. But to those people, they're exactly right. So which one of those is good? Which one are we going to be doing in heaven? Do they don't have a valid way of doing that, so we have to show them our world?
Yeah.
It's not that. It's about your heart, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I got this picture in my head as you guys are talking about. I have to dumb things down to understand them myself, because if you know me, you know that I'm not exactly a high church-minded person.
I didn't mean to nod so quickly. Sorry.
Thanks. Thank you. I'm used to that. So, but I was thinking about I was thinking about all the churches that I've been to in my time and how different they are. When I was doing some golf business years ago, I remember being in eastern Tennessee, and when I would go to a town, I'd be there 3 or 4 days working what I did at these golf courses. And on Wednesdays, if I was in the town on Wednesdays, I usually was, I would try to visit a local church. And I remember in East Tennessee visiting a couple of those really little churches in the woods.
We going to talk about snakes?
It was close, but it was so drastically different than what I was doing at my home church, and even what I can recall as a child in Arkansas. But as we were talking about that, I started thinking about that, but then I got to think about, in my own family, I had brothers and cousins, and they all have families of their own. And when I go to visit one of those families, their lifestyle is completely different than mine. they do things in a different way, but I respect it when I'm there, and I begin to appreciate what they're doing, and I realize in the family concept, we're all in the same family, and we all have that real strong bond. And I have a few first cousins that we have almost a brother type bond. So I was thinking about it. It's very similar. This is actually helping me about with this thing about looking at other churches and how they do what they do, and is my way better or worse. It kind of gave me a neat little picture just now of this one big family that all has that common thing, but we all do it a little different, but we respect each other. And I don't go to my relative's house and try to change the way they're doing things.
Because they're not doing it the right way.
Exactly.
Right.
Even if I think, and we all do,
Oh, yeah.
that they're not doing something the right way, we're not going to say anything about that to them,
Right.
unless it's unhealthy. But isn't that the same?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be the same in these church circles to if you're seeing things that are unhealthy? I think of televangelists who get off track,
Yep.
which may be what you're referring to about when they left, they came back. You know, Jesus left and came back the very next day, didn't he? He left the temple after cleaning the house a little bit and came back the very next day.
Right.
And I don't know what that point was, but what was that point? Oh, they were using this place of worship
Yep.
in ways that had kind of gotten out of hand, gotten away from the main thing.
Right.
So anyway,
You know, when you were talking about that, I was reminded I've got 3 kids, and they're all very different. And the way they express love back to me is different. Like my daughter, she sings pretty well, and she can play a little piano, and she does those kind of creative things. But now my boys, you would not want them to be in the choir. You know, they can carry a tune, just not maybe as well. But they do other things, you know, mow the grass for me, or, you know, wash the car for me, or do stuff like that. And I never look at them and go, well, I wish you could sing like your sister. If you could sing like your sister, then I'd know you love me. You know, you receive the love that they're able to give and capable to give because it's part of who they are. And I think kind of what you're saying about worship is that, you know, God receives because, again, it's about substance, what's in your heart, not necessarily the form that you do. Neil and I are on the same team, but we're in a competition, right? So he does the singing and the worship arts, and I'm just the talking guy. Well, I can really get excited when somebody comes up to me and goes, well, you know, Brother Jones, I would just be okay if they didn't do all that silly music stuff and just let you preach for an hour. I can just really get real puffed up about that until I get in the car and talk to my wife, and she's like, you know, I like that we sang a little bit more today, and I heard less of you.
bring it on down.
Right. So we sometimes not only miss that different types of worship speak to God, but they also speak to different people. And we can't just be so inclusive that has to be this way. It has to be, you know, we've got people in our church, they love Southern gospel music. Fantastic. Not everybody does. You know, some people love high church music. Not everybody does. We got some people that love contemporary. You could just sing everything on K-Love. They would be so happy, but not everybody does. And so, you know, worship is a collection of ways that we can worship Him. But again, it comes back to our heart. You know, what's really the focus and what's the purpose of that?
You know, you can really get off in the weeds at a church. Having been involved with one now for 25 or 30 years, I can see where you can really get off in the weeds away from the very simple reason that you're there anyway. Well, I've seen it happen. It causes problems with other people. It causes you waste a lot of time when you could be kind of talking and focusing on the main thing. You waste a lot of time on this other stuff just because of differences.
So where did all the denominations come from?
You brought it up. You answer it.
Well, I think there's a lot of that struggle through there.
Yeah.
And I notice that, you know, in our area, there's a church every half mile. If you don't like this one, there's a half mile down there. There's another church. They're all over. It's very densely populated here, and I just had this vision of people getting upset about things like, you don't do enough of this musically, or you don't preach this way, or you comb your hair the wrong way, or whatever. I'm going to go somewhere else. And I had a friend that was an elder, and he once said, your relationship with the church is, if you believe sincerely that God has drawn you here, your relationship should be the same as your marriage is, where if you don't like something your wife cooked for dinner, you don't leave.
Right.
You work through it. You talk through it. You make it work. And it's a changing organism, but it's the core message is the same, but it gets wrapped differently, different packages. It's like Jesus Christ is a present to us, and the outside wrapping changes, but the inside is the same, and we need to understand that more than anything else, I think.
And we miss that opportunity because there's going to be discord in the church.
Well, yeah, but it's because there's people.
There's people.
Right.
And because I have thoughts, and my thoughts are different than your thoughts, and so we're naturally going to fight for my thoughts. I think what I think is important, so I'm going to fight for my thoughts. And when we come to have to make a decision, because there's limited time, there's limited resources, and so we have to start making decisions, and then people get their feelings hurt. And when they leave and go to another church, what they're going to find is whatever problem you had back here, you're going to have going forward. I think what we miss, just like what we miss in our marriages, sometimes it's the working it out, the difference that creates the deeper bond.
Yes.
And I think that's what Christ wants us to do in the body. Again, if you move 30 miles away, then yeah, you probably need to change churches. Or if you definitely move across town, you need to change churches. But do we change churches just because, well, I told them I wanted to hear more of this kind of music and they just won't listen to me, so I'm going to go to another church? That might not be the reason to change. Maybe you need to grow, and maybe you need to mature. Maybe you need to change. So I think we miss opportunities for growth internally when we don't work things out with people. I'm fortunate to have been involved with this particular church group that I am for all these years, because they're very down-to-earth people, and they don't get too excited about things. And I've seen a lot of changes happen in the 25 years or so I've been there. A lot of changes that were kind of drastic changes in the way we do things and the approaches. I've heard of grumbling over the years. I've grumbled some myself. But I've found that as a whole, the people, even though they may have a little grumble about it, are more than willing to just let things happen and see what happens. And every time they do that, there's some growth. Every single time they do that, there's some growth. And I'm afraid there are places that may not do it that way, but I also think those places are easy to spot because there's not very many people at them, because eventually they'll all be going somewhere. Well, church is like any other organization or organism. It changes over time. Again, what we have to go back to, are we at the core? Are we worshiping God? Are we discipling each other? Are we loving God and others? Back in the Briar, we used to do bus ministry, and we also used to do youth choir. The youth choir would travel from church to church, and we'd sing and we'd do all this stuff. And you really don't see that as much anymore. Does that mean that youth choir is no longer important? Bus ministry is no longer important? It probably means you don't have the workers or the need. And that's the part, I laugh because people always like, well, back when we used to do handbells, and I'm like, I like handbells. It's not that I'm against it. We don't have anybody that really has stepped forward to say, I want to do handbells. Right. We had an organ at one time. Nobody knew how to play it. Once the person that gave it and played it went on to be with the Lord, nobody else knew how to play it. So us keeping it up on the stage was ridiculous, and we needed to change because now we got guys that can play other instruments, let them do their thing. So change is not a bad thing, I don't think.
No.
It's just, again, what is the purpose of what you're doing? We get nostalgic, and it's real easy to go back to those things, and nothing wrong with nostalgia, but they were there for a moment in time, and it becomes a form of worship and not a substance.
I've always amused myself with the thought that when these, especially with music in churches, and that's something that comes up regularly because there's so many different opinions, but I've always amused myself during those times of thinking about if the people who are really raising stink about this changing music, if they really wanted to be traditional, we'd just have like a yak horn.
Yes.
And we'd all be sitting around blowing on that. So do you really want
A yak horn?
Do you really want traditional or not?
Is that like an acorn?
Sort of.
Okay.
Anyway, I just had that thought.
And what is traditional? I mean, is it,
What is traditional?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the way that, so how great thou art, is that the way that the apostles sang that?
Exactly.
That's my question.
Well, at one point, the piano
It was a saloon instrument.
Was a saloon instrument.
Yep.
Right.
And how dare you bring that into the
Hey,
church?
I can recall at my church, the thought of having drums in there was so foreign, but I know that I slid them in there once with playing they used to let me sing a special. Remember specials?
Oh, yeah.
They used to let me sing a
Which
special once in a
implies
while.
that nothing else is special.
Yes. But anyway, I slid some drums in there. I think Darrell Leftwich, a friend of mine, drug his drums in there. And I can recall a little buzz about those drums being in there. But then one of the old guys who might have been the most vocal about stuff like that, I noticed the guy's foot tapping.
Yep.
And then, one year, I think like the second year I did acoustic Christmas there, he was full on foot tapping and clapping and stuff. And it was like, so these instruments aren't so bad to have in there.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's amusing to me. Yak horn. If you really want traditional, get a yak horn. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Dirt floors, yak horns,
Snakes in a box.
broom for your feet. Yeah.
There's a female artist that has been very, very successful over the years in Christian music. And I remember the story about the church that she was at, which is downtown Nashville, did not permit instruments. It was just voices, that's it. And she brought an instrument in one time and played a song. And the funny thing was, people were very responsive and liked it for about 2 weeks, and then somebody made a comment about it. Said, "Did you have a guitar in here?"
Can you do that?
Yeah.
Is it a lyre or lyre? What's the pronunciation?
It's a lyre.
Lyre.
L-Y-R-E.
That's the pronunciation in the scriptures.
Yes.
And that was a guitar.
It's like
right?
a harp guitar.
Like with a bunch of strings, like 40
Guitar?
strings or something.
Yes.
But it's pronounced lyre. Okay. Just want to clear that up.
And the case was called Pants on Fire.
It took me a second, but I got it. Hey, this is kind of an area where I always like for us to kind of zero in on somebody that might need to hear a little bit of this thing called the gospel. So why don't one of you fellas share that and how you can participate. The important thing is how you can participate, because I think there's some confusion on that, especially when you're searching for that. I think there can be some confusion on that. So somebody clear that
my
up,
guest.
would you?
Beauty before age.
Well, again, one of the biggest things that we've talked about is it really is more of a heart matter. And what God wants from us is our heart. He really doesn't want your check, and he really doesn't want, all these other things. Those are secondary. He wants your heart. When he has your heart, yeah, he'll get a hold of your billfold. He'll get a hold of your language. He'll get a hold of how you treat other people. But the most important thing he wants your heart. And so worship begins when we realize there's something out there bigger than us that is the answer to all of our problems and questions. And so, when we just cry out to him, and that's what I would encourage people that are searching and really don't know what that next step is, just cry out to him. I've heard people say, something to the extent of, God, if you're real, show me. I mean, a willing and wanting heart, believe it or not, is a gift from above. God is revealing himself to you even in your unbelief. And so just start there and be honest and open with God. Be willing, though, to listen. Part of our problem is we want to make God into what we want him to be instead of allowing him to make us into what he wants us to be. And if you'll be honest with yourself, when you've made yourself into whatever you are today, you're probably sick of it. You're kind of miserable. But if you'll let God do his work in your life, what you'll find is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, self-control. Those things that the Bible talks about comes as a affirmation of being part of his family. But it's not just about attending church. It's not just about reading your Bible. Those are things that happen because you're surrendering your heart to him.
It's about the crying out.
It is, yeah.
Which is okay to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Seems like that's when the only real solutions come to things down in your inner being, is when you get to the point where you've exhausted all your own thoughts and ideas, and you have to cry out.
In your brokenness, absolutely.
Nice. Good word. I feel like I should give you an offering. But I'm not.
I'll just
I'm
take
gonna
a
take a break,
cup of
come
coffee.
back, play Inny or Outty, and try to make you look silly on the
I
program.
appreciate that.
Goal of mine. We'll be back. Thank you for listening to and watching Mike the Baptist. We hope you get something out of these programs and that they bring you a bit of joy and hope. This year, we want to ask you to help us grow our listening audience by simply sharing these podcasts and video episodes with your friends on social media and in the real world. Our goal is simple: talk about our faith and how it affects our lives using common language, just the way people really talk. The message really is good news for people who are already churched up and for those who aren't yet, because the good news isn't something we're given to keep to ourselves. It's meant to be shared. So we're asking you to share this year by telling others about the foolishness and the fun on Mike the Baptist. We're just Christians trying not to cuss.
Hey everybody, it's time to play America's almost favoriteest new game show, Inny or Outty, where we challenge our guests to figure out if a phrase we give them is actually in the Bible or out of the Bible. Sharpen your wits, guest. You're about to be in the hot seat of Bible stuff, because you're the next contestant on Inny or Outty. Here's Mike.
Today on Inny or Outty, we're going to do exactly what we always do on Inny or Outty. We're going to try to stump each other, which I just find fascinating, and just it's so much fun. It really is.
It's really FUN-U-CATIONal.
It's FUN-U-CATIONal, as my friend HD said. Also, I wanted to point out, HD always has some interesting things to say, and I was trying to make a mental note or two of them today. Another new word is abeable.
Abeable.
Yeah, he used the word abeable, which is more able than just your normal able.
Well, it's capable and able together, I guess.
Capable
I don't
and
know.
abeable. I didn't write that one down. I just remembered that one. But I wanted to point out to the listeners that holt of, if you get a holt of something, that's a Greenbrier, Tennessee term, which also is used quite commonly in the Ozarks. And I'm not sure, Neil, was it used up in Angola?
Angola, yeah.
Named
Anastasia.
after a cat.
No, it's Angola.
Angola, was that used? Did they say holt of?
Never heard that before.
I just wanted to clear up for those of you who don't know what that means. It means get a hold of.
Yes.
But
That's in the same vocabulary as fixin'
fixin' to?
or fickin'.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of the same thing. Holt of. Okay. Anyway, today on Inny or Outty, HD is going to present one, and I'm going to present one. HD, would you like to go first?
I would love to. Part of our existence in this world is death.
Oh, thanks. That's all you and I talked about at lunch today.
Right?
Such a joyous conversation.
And so
but the food was good.
What kind of food did you
we
have?
end up.
Oh, it's spicy smoked chicken.
We end up.
I'm sorry,
In
were
a
you
coffin.
talking?
we end up in a coffin.
Somebody over here?
Right?
Okay.
We end up in a coffin.
Yes.
That's a big experience in our life.
Yes.
People with allergies have a cough.
I know, right?
Yes.
I'm coughing right now. So, is the word coffin in the Bible?
Oh, that's tricky.
Because Jesus, we're coming up on Easter.
Uh-huh.
Jesus was wrapped and placed into a tomb.
Right.
So, coffin is the word coffin in the Bible.
Neil, what's a sarcophagus? That word just crossed my mind.
It's an Egyptian tomb. It's not the tomb. The tomb is the bigger.
It's what
thing,
King
a
Tut was
sarcophagus.
laying in.
Right.
His box.
Which would have been
It's a
coffin.
box and they would typically have it carved so that it resembled who was inside.
Okay.
There's a really amazing display of those at the Natural Field Museum in Chicago.
Really?
Yes.
Which you have been
Which is-
asking me
yeah.
to
Which
go
is
see
right
that
outside of Angola.
museum. Yes. My initial gut reaction is no,
That would be my reaction. to
because
that,
of
too.
the tomb part where they're, putting them in a hole in the cave wall and the sliding stones and stuff. That's my initial. Because if I'm not mistaken, they wrapped people then, didn't they?
Well, that was, yeah.
Well, I
That
mean,
was the-
like a burrito or something.
Not like my name is HD and I'm here to say. They wrapped them.
When did the
yeah.
fabulous Thunderbirds wrap it up, baby?
What are y'all drinking today? Because it's like.
Yeah.
So I don't think coffin is in the Bible.
I
Do
don't
you?
think so. I know tomb is. But
Yeah, tomb. Is that word sarcophagus is not in there
I don't
either.
believe that is. I don't know if that's just part of Egyptian culture.
I don't remember that being used anywhere else.
You been to Egypt?
Nope. I listened to Steve Martin's King Tut though, so I
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like I've been there.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a flashback.
Boy, ain't it?
King Tut. That's in the Mike the Baptist hymnal, though, isn't it?
It is. Yes,
I
it is.
remember
You remember
us-
the Mike the Baptist hymnal? We used to sing hymns at the end of
Yeah.
these programs, which we've been away from. I've been waiting to see if anybody complains much, and they haven't.
That's a good thing.
Oh no. I think no.
I'll vote no.
Tell him it's an Outty.
He's going to pull it out.
It's an Outty.
It's an Outty.
I think it's an Outty.
Yeah, we both think it's an Outty.
Last verse in Genesis. The bones of Joseph are placed in a coffin and taken out of Egypt.
Wow.
Really?
Yep.
That
There's
one
two
is
places.
fascinating.
There's two, but that's one of them that I remembered.
So I wonder why that particular, and that was Genesis.
Yep. His bones were placed into a coffin and taken out of Egypt.
So there's nowhere else in the scripture where you see that happening.
I think there's two places that the word coffin is used, but that was the one that
Out of curiosity, I don't
Yep.
guess you know just offhand where the other one was.
not offhand.
Okay. I'm just curious about that. That's kind of
Yeah.
interesting, but it's good to know. As I always say, the next time we're in a deep conversation about coffins in the scripture,
Yep.
we're going to be going, "Hey, I know about that."
That's helpful knowledge.
That's right.
Wow,
Wow.
that was a good one.
Very cool.
Get back to us sometime about where the other mention of that was in the scripture. It'd just be interesting to know.
I will look that up.
Okay. All right. I'm going to move on now and see if I can stump the panel. Is the phrase "spare the rod, spoil the child" in the Bible? Gentlemen, you may discuss.
I'm discussing it in my head.
Gotcha. I do that a lot.
Spare the rod and spoil the child.
Spare the rod, spoil the child.
My initial is yes.
And I don't think it is.
That's the way this
And here
game
comes
is
the
played.
conversation. Let's go, guys. Spare the rod, spoil the child. Very common phrase, isn't it? And true, I would say. The risk of being sued by
Spare the
somebody.
rod and spoil the child.
Spare the rod, spoil the child. And what did y'all both initially say?
I said yes. I think it's in there.
You said yes, and you
I
said
said no.
so. So we're not at an impasse
That's
yet.
because I spanked my kids and he didn't.
No,
I'm trying to look biblical and so is he.
That's not true. No, mine scolded themselves, remember?
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes.
I told you my youngest, Patrick, put himself in the corner
Yep.
when he was about 3 years old.
Yep.
And I could never understand why he did that. And we walked past him. He's standing in the corner with his nose in the corner. And not long ago, I asked him why he did that. Because we went in the other room, we were chuckling about it. He scolded himself. And I asked him why. He said, I didn't want to hear you lecture me.
So he just took care of it. That's actually
Yeah.
wisdom.
So nobody puts a baby in the corner. He decided he'd put himself there.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
That's right.
Gotcha.
I got to
Well,
find
he
the
never
music
told
from
us
that
what he-
movie now.
Didn't know what he did. we didn't know what he had done.
He still doesn't
to
know.
put
does he?
himself in the. Don't remember.
Probably had the time of his life. Did you catch that?
I did.
Nobody puts baby in the corner. Anyway. Oh, wait, I'm not having to figure it out. I'm the one that asked.
What's it say on there?
I can't tell you.
It's going to be a long episode if you don't tell us.
Oh, well, I will eventually, but
So are we in or out? Are you pretty
I'm
sure?
I'm pretty sure it's not, but I'll go along
No,
with you.
no, it's not. He's pretty sure. So
one of y'all got to go
I'm
along
just
with
pretty.
the other.
I'm just
sure
pretty.
I'm wrong. You go with
I'm pretty.
He's just pretty. I'm pretty sure.
I don't even know what to do now.
Tell us.
We'll
where
go
it
with it in. It's in there.
Yeah.
Spare the rod and spoil the child.
You're going with Inny.
Yes, sir.
It is not in there.
I knew that. See, I told you.
There's a ton of references to how to use a rod on a child in the Bible, and even about sparing the rod. But that particular phrase, "spoil the child," is not in there in relation to that. The concept, as we've discussed before,
Right.
the concept is in there obviously, but that phrase is not in the Bible.
The rod was used by shepherds
Mm-hmm.
to guide the flock, and people sometimes have misconstrued that a little.
Yeah, but now there is a lot of, especially in Proverbs, about using the rod to discipline a child. There's quite a few references in Proverbs, and I think Hebrews.
There's
So
also a lot of
that
things. in
rod was a
Proverbs
handy
that- yeah.
tool. It's kind of like the wooden spoon of the day.
The fly
Like
swatter.
that, the fly swatter.
The fly swatter of the day.
The fly swatter of
The word coffin is also in Luke 7:14. He came up and touched the coffin, and the bearers stood still.
Oh, from Luke the physician.
And he said, "Get up," and Jesus healed them.
So they did use coffins, and that's interesting.
Wow.
Huh.
And rods.
FUN-U-CATIONAL.
Here we go.
So, okay, well, that was exciting. Thanks for being with us on Inny or Outty today. One win, one loss. Or were they both losses?
Double negative. Double naught.
We're kind of on our roll here
Yes.
lately. But you know what that tells me? It tells me the questions are getting good. So we're learning. Speaking of learning your lesson, we're going to take a break, come back, and tell you goodbye in proper high church fashion. Or low church. Your choice.
Oh, wow. What a great contestant and a fine sport today on Inny or Outty, America's almost favorite new game show. Study up, future guest people. You're next in the hot seat for Inny or Outty.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. Thanks, HD.
Good episode, Michael.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure just having a conversation with you guys. I find you all fascinating. Kind of like going to a zoo. And family trying to hurry me along. I'm going like, no, I'm still observing this.
It's like watching paint dry, isn't it?
No, it's more exciting
okay.
than watching paint dry.
Just stay on the other side of the bars.
Do you know how much paint I have watched in my life dry? Not much, because I'm usually gone as soon as it's done. I don't wait for it to dry.
No, I've seen you watching paint dry, and I've watched you watch paint dry.
I have watched a lot of paint dry.
Seen
I
that.
have. You know what's one of the worst things in the world is, to me, the painter?
What?
When I need to paint a wall in my house, it just drives me nuts. It's like one of the worst things ever to have to paint something like that of my own. I just thought I'd get that out and vent a little bit. Thank you for your counseling. Thanks, fellas. Good talk. Hope somebody picked up a little nugget of information they can use. If not, we'll be back in about a week, do it again, and we'll have nuggets for you then. So, bring a bib. I don't know what that means, but we're just Christians.
Trying not to cuss.
Mm-hmm. You too?
Sounds good.
You're the preacher. You're supposed to. You better not. Much. I don't know. We'll forgive you if you do. Not us. Forgive you, but you know what I'm saying. See you next time.
Mike the Baptist.